For gonna tell us what the secrets are, and maybe we can all learn something. On behalf of the AGC, Mike, we appreciate you being here. We're glad that Brad had the idea to have you come here and talk to us, and we look forward to your wisdom. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mike McFarland. Mike.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to the AGC and Brad, first off, for asking me to do this. Always flattering, and if anybody that knows me, I love to teach, and I really, that's what I was born to do. So I'm gonna make you laugh a little bit. I used to be a professional fisherman. I really was not a top finisher. So I always make that joke. If you ever heard that, they say those that can do and those that can't teach. But I'm not belittling myself, okay? I love Lake Fork. I'm a full-time fishing guide here, for those of you that don't know. And I'm gonna promise you, if you'll listen to me really closely right now, you gotta listen, you have to focus, because I'm gonna teach you something you probably never heard of, unless you follow me already, okay? So listen to me closely, not about what exactly I'm using, but what I'm gonna teach you right now, okay? Everybody know Mr. Mark Pack? He's one of my best friends. Mark Pack shared more with me than I think just about any other angler out there, and I promise you, that's the truth. It was God witnessing. It was more about God for Mark. In the last probably 10 to 15 years, he was a minister. People didn't know that. He sent us messages on a daily basis, every single day. And he put God first, in front of everything, all right? And because of that, I followed that man, not because of fishing. I wanted to be mentored. I left Phoenix, Arizona. I left the West Coast to come follow that man and be with that man. In a period of about 6 years, 7, I learned more from that man about God and about who I am, what I'm supposed to do, than ever in my life before. Now, let's focus back on the fishing. Mark's listening right now. He's watching and he's smiling. But Mark taught me something. It's called the Rule of 3. It's really simple if you listen closely. If you don't, if you're talking to your buddy or whatever, you're not going to get it. It's going to go right over your head like rocket science. So I need you to listen. The rule of 3, or the rule of thirds, okay? Break any body of water down, the main lake itself, in thirds, okay? So we're going to take Lake Fork and its entirety, East Fork, West Fork, Little Canyon. We're going to draw 2 lines through it. That breaks it into thirds, okay? I'm going to help you out a little bit right now. The thirds for me would be the basin to the first set of power lines right about Wolf, okay? Draw it across the lake. Basin to the 154 bridge. If you're on the east side, basin to the power lines on Wolf. That's zone 3. The midsection would be Wolf to the 515 west, would be 154 to the 515 east. That's zone 2. You with me? And the final is 1. So now we've taken this lake, any lake, doesn't matter where you are, Barkley, Florida, doesn't matter where you go, you break the lake first into thirds. Now before I tell you the second part, I'm going to tell you why we did this. Mark used to travel with some of the very best pros in the world. Scott Martin was one of his best friends. And when they traveled together, they couldn't share, they didn't want to share all the details. But if you're my buddy and I go on the road with you, I want us both to have success. We come in at the end of the day and I say, hey, how'd you do? And you say, man, I was all over him. I say, man, I was struggling. You're not going to tell me, you don't need to tell me what you caught him on, but you can help me as a friend. So this is where the rule of 3 comes in. The second part of the rule of 3 is the same process, but you do it with any of the creek arms, any fingers, okay? The mouth of Williams Creek is 3. The middle section of Wolf Creek is 2. And the back of Wolf Creek is 1. Are you with me? Is this making sense to anybody? Is it going rocket science? So now Mark could come in at the end of the day and say, hey man, I'm all over him. I'm in 3-1. Where's 3-1? Main basin all the way back in the creek. What if he said 3-3? Main basin, mouth of the creek. Okay? This simple number system puts you in the most productive area of the lake. If you follow any of the pros, you find that usually the top 10 guys in every single event will be not necessarily in the same area, but a lot of times in the same quarter mile. And or by replication, if you look, they're fishing in the same sections, but just dispersed throughout the lake. Okay? Fish are like deer. They use the same stuff throughout the year. They do the same thing. So if you got deer at a certain elevation in the mountains, there are probably others just miles over in the same elevations, etc. So by using the rule of 3, I'm going to tell you guys where you should be fishing. Anybody confused? All right, so besides talking about baits, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, here's where your fish are. Okay? If you want to catch the males and you want to finish a limit, you need to be in 1-1. All right, I'm going to just make it simple. 1-1 means all the way up Running Creek, all the way up Glade Creek, all the way up Coffee Creek, all the way up Birch. 1-1, anywhere up there, far as you can go. Okay? Why? Anybody have any answers why? Pre-spawn, yes, but that's the first water to warm up. The last 3 days we've had nothing but beautiful, sun shining, beating that surface, warming the 18 inches of subsurface up tremendously, and then the south wind blows that nice warm water all the way north. Okay? 1-1. The big females are not ready. The big females are just behind those. So in essence, it's real simple. If you have all those fish in a 1-1, or even 3-1, 2-1, you're going to find the males. Am I going too fast? It's pretty simple. 3-1 means main basin, back of the creek, but it needs to be south blown. If it ain't south blown, it ain't no good. Okay? That's where your males are. It's where you're going to catch your limit. The females are still out in the points throughout the whole lake, which would basically be your 3-3, 2-3, 1-3. Okay? Anybody understand that? Give me hands. Right on. A lot of hands. I love it. Before I tell you what I'm doing and how I'm catching the fish, I want to tell you that you can catch them your own way. Rattle traps, square bills, spinnerbaits, if there's wind. If there's no wind, you need to go to a little Texas rig and or creature baits or a Carolina rig or a jig, whichever your favorite. There's nothing better than your confidence. The one thing I will tell you that matters right now is color. And we're going to get to that in just a second. So I want you to more or less focus on these locations of where they are. And today I learned something with my clients that was really critical. When we were under trolling motor, no matter how slow we went, I would tell them, you need to slow down, sir. You need to slow down. You're fishing too fast. You're fishing too fast. We're under trolling motor. We never got bit. Every time that I stopped that boat, put them power poles down, and I made them stay, caught fish. Moving, the boat's moving, even though you think you're moving slow. That's not the gist of what you got to do right now. So, the majority of your males are up. There's a ton of them. They have fins that are actually already, you can tell they've been digging, okay? They've got for some reason, I'm real tired, it's not coming to me right now, but when you look at a bass, a male that's gone in and dug, it's got that fanned out tail, torn up tail a little bit. They've already been digging. The fish I caught yesterday had warm bodies. That meant they've been up in the water long enough to get warm. The fish we caught today were pale white, still in that same water, but they were cold. So they're coming. There'll be more fish coming through tonight. So the 1-1s are your areas. That means up. Let's use where you're at right here, Little Caney. You can go right back out here in the backs of any one of these creeks, and you've got fish. I'm going to help you out, tighten that up a little bit. You don't want the main drain. You want the little drains. So you got a creek, okay? Got the whole creek winding like a snake. Them females are out there in that creek, okay? Still staging, still making their moves. But the little tiny drains is where all the bucks are. They have not dispersed. They're gathering. The bucks are migrating in those little creeks and the females are out in those trees. Are you with me? This is probably more depth than I've done before. Here's the secret. I know you guys all want 5 fish limit, but you also have a big fish deal here. So when you go work in these spots, you find a small little drain, and you start catching males, you can sure enough bet that just right behind them in those trees are the females. If you do not have live scope,
You don't have to have live scope. Live scope will help you out a little bit if you know how to use it, because those females suspending in the trees. Okay, with the low water, it's really hard to work them without being able to see them. But the secret is find some males first. Okay, don't try to fish for the females blind. Right now I'm going into a pocket. I went into duck call. Anybody know duck call? How about let's just use wolf? How about let's use a simple one, little Mustang. You go in a little Mustang, was one of those first little drains. You get bit in that drain, turn around, and fish in the 5 to 8 foot in those suspended trees for the females. The males are in less than 3 feet of water. They got fan tails and they're digging already. The next moon, there will be a spawn on Lake Fork. One of the biggest things that I learned when I came here was how fast these fish can come and go because of the Texas weather. One day it's winter, the next day it's summer. The shallow water changes like that. All right? So, everybody with that? Let's go back through it again. Real quick now. If you understand it, I'm going to give you the numbers. If you want to catch males and fill your limit, you want to be in the 1-1s and the 2-1s. Most of the 3-1s are clear water, that's more basin oriented, and they're not warm enough. Anybody familiar with Indian Creek? Indian Creek is ideal. That's mid-lake 2. If you go all the way back in Indian Creek, 2-1, in those drains, you will catch fish. But you got to go slow. You got to stop on the drain, put the power poles down, whatever you got to do, and spend 20 minutes in that drain. Don't make 5 casts and think that there's no fish there. We sat in the drain for 15 minutes a day before we finally got bit. We got bit 3 times in that one drain. They were all nice males. They were all fish that you would have used in your tournament. We turned right back around and went out in those trees through a jerkbait. Had a couple opportunities at some big fish. Very difficult to catch the big fish right now. They're still cold. So if you spend the whole day trying to catch an over, you're probably going to 0. I would concentrate first on finding some males. Just like when does are in heat, the bucks are not far behind. Okay? That's the best thing I can tell you right now. Now let's talk about what I'm doing to catch them. I'm tell you the easiest thing to catch those males is just a little Texas rig. Always use 20-pound test on fork because you never ever know when that big fish is going to bite. And I always say I don't go bear hunting with a BB gun. Okay? So if you downsize your line, you might get a few more bites because you're going to have a little bit different action. But then again, there might be that day where that big female's up there and you didn't know it, and you get schooled by a 10-pounder on the wood, and you got 14-pound test. So I am running 20 no matter what. I do not believe that it affects my bites whatsoever. 20-pound test, 8-ounce tungsten weight, and I'm using 2 baits. A Zoom baby brush hog in the most simple color, watermelon red. If the sun is shining, you better have some red in your bug. All right? June bug red. Those are the 2 colors. The second baits that I'm using is really unique, and I brought them here, but it's the V&M chopstick. A lot of guys like Singos. I really prefer the V&M chopstick because I get twice as many baits for the same amount of money, and they work just fine. The main thing that I found this last week is the color. The V&M chopstick in the color. Come on, my brain's tired. Pardon me. And I can't see, I'm getting old with my glasses. Okeechobee crawl. The V&M does an Okeechobee magic crawl. And I'm throwing black and blue tail, but literally all of the bites that I've had, the majority of them have come on that Okeechobee crawl, Okeechobee magic crawl, which is basically green pumpkin and a blue fleck on one side. So I know a lot of old school guys talked to this week, just locals that are catching them really good on the June bug red flake. But small baits, Texas rig, 1/8 ounce, in the drains, go slow, you will catch fish. If you're not catching fish, it's because you're going too fast. That's it. The next baits, jerk baits, Alabama rigs, those things for the big females. If you have live scope, go for it. Chase them. It's frustrating. You're going to see them follow and follow and follow and follow and follow and never bite. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The live scope has its place, but man, it's not a guarantee to catch them. It's a guarantee to see them drive you nuts. So what I've done is I'm taking the theory of the Okeechobee crawl, and it's worked for me now so far. I'm taking a wobble head taking a half-ounce wobblehead, and I'm using the Strike King cutter worm, but the big one. I got them up here so you can come see them. Rage tail cutter worm, not the little one, but the big one. It's like 8 inches. It's really kind of like a Cinco with a tail. And I'm swimming it. It's weedless. It's a wobblehead. It has a lot of undulation. It has movement without movement. If I want to kill it and drop it down on the tree, I can drop it and fish it just like a jig. But it doesn't hang up in the wood. So now I can go out there I don't need the live scope. I find my males. I turn around and throw that into those trees and work it through the trees, just like a swim bait, or just like a spinner bait. When it hits the tree, sometimes I can let it fall. But again, that wobble head with that big bait has movement without movement. So now if the fish decides to follow it, and it follows it down, when it hits the bottom, it still has movement, and I don't have to do anything. How many people here watch the MLF at all? How many of you noticed that when they put a jig on a stump, did you ever see them just sit there? Did you watch that? Did you even notice it? Some of them sat there for 3, 4, 5 minutes like it was a piece of chicken liver and they were catfishing. I want you to remember one thing. There's only one reason that we catch fish. I'm sorry, 2. The one is they're hungry and they eat our bait. The second is territory. And when those females are in those trees, they are not there to eat. They're staging, they're on their way in, and that is territory. So, sir, if I was to get up on your grill right here and stay on your grill for long enough, you're going to say, Mike, get out of my face. Respectfully, I would move. I would never get up on your grill in the first place. But if you're a big old bass and I stay there long enough, what you going to do to me? Okay? Watch Josh Bertram. If you can see any of the footage, good friend of mine, young kid, mentored him on the West Coast. He put a jig in a tree, past the tree. When he got that jig to the base of that tree and felt that crunch of the roots, he literally dropped his rod tip and just sat there. You can see him look off in the clouds. And he waited over 3 minutes without moving it, without shaking it. Bonk, got himself a 7-pounder. They're there. We move too fast. That's probably the biggest mistake even us guides do. We know they're there. We expect that bite to happen faster than it will. And we move too fast. All right? So the rule of 3 puts you where they are. Anyone have any questions on that? Go catch them your way. Little Texas rigs, lizards, things like that. With any way that you would catch a male. Don't be too confused that it's so cold and I got to do all this and I got to do all that. They are there. And once those males move in, you can ask the Stevensons. They're my good friends. Mark Stevenson, Hall of Fame for catching Ethel, and his wife, Barbara Stevenson. We just had a conversation in real-time rounds the other day. That once them big old fish move in, these Florida string, I don't care if it snows, ice, for 4 more days, they do not come back out. Everybody says they pull back out. No, they do not. I guarantee you. If I had Mark Stevenson right here, he'd just be smiling. They do not. They stay in there no matter how cold it is, and they actually get mad. It's like they don't like it. They're mad. They've made their move. So I've been insistent on this. Find some of these areas and stay there until you catch the fish. Tell yourself, I'm not leaving this little tiny drain. It's got some wood. It's got some stumps. I'm going to catch the fish before I leave it. And it'll get you some confidence and begin your game, okay? A couple more tips. The bigger stumps always hold the better fish. Those big live oaks, they got a root system on them. I know you can see them out of the water now. When you're going along, look on one of those points and you see one of them trees with all the crazy roots and it looks like a fish tank aquarium thing, just picture that underwater. And that fish has got to get inside that. Well, guess what? Your bait has to get inside that. If we're talking about getting up on territory and you're fishing so fast, you throw past the stump and you say, I made a perfect cast, and you're pulling it and it hits the stump, feels so good, and you pull it right out of there. It never fell in there. When you feel that crunch, you got to be able to pull it and give it some slack to let it fall back in there. Okay? And the final thing I'm going to leave you with before I show you these baits that I'm using, you're welcome to come up here and see them, is you most likely will not feel the bite. I had 2 fish today that went thump thump. The rest of them was just, it was like time to that Coca-Cola can on the water. When you just kind of lift, he said, man, it's got give, but I can't tell what that is. Hook sets are free. And a little tiny split shot, whatever you got on, worm there, Texas rig, man, it don't cost nothing. Set the hook. Slow down. Fish the drains. 1-1s, think of those ones, the 2-1s, where that south wind blows, sheltered from the north wind, and you're on fish. That's where I'm fishing. That's where I'll be with my clients tomorrow. And that's how I'm finding success. One last little thing. If you got the courage, you can camp. Mark Peck would say, get out there on them shell beds, boy, put your deal down and don't go nowhere. Tie the ball and chain on there and throw it till you fall out, till your arm falls off. Think of deer hunting. Take a look at some of these trails, how deer go, right? Well, look at these creeks the exact same way. If you're going back into a creek and it makes a Y and it splits, that's just like two deer trails colliding. The fish have to come through that to get to the back, right? Don't they? They're going to go to the back of a creek. Let's use Wolf. It's got 3 different drains, 3 different creeks. Their fish are out there in them trees in the mouth. They got to choose one of these 3 to go. They're on the move. We know that. The moon's coming. Our odds are they're going to come to us if we put the boat in the right spot and wait long enough. So that there might find you a 0, and it might find you a hero. My friend Mark Peck used to say it the best, and I heard it time and time again at breakfast. If you heard the first half of it, you'd think, man, that guy might be a bit arrogant. But he'd say, ain't nobody on this lake caught more big fish than me. 38 years, ain't no one held a candle down me big fish I caught some. If you waited just a second longer, he'd say on the same turn, ain't no one took as many zeros. So if you want to win this thing with a big fish, hero 0, or follow what I just talked, find the males. There's females right behind. Okay? Any questions?
What's your water temp, Mike?
I'm glad you just asked. I was going to close you with that. Water temperature is probably your most important thing. Okay? It doesn't matter whether it's 48 and 52 or 55 and 70. Find the warmest water you can be in, because that's where your highest odds are. Does that make sense? For me, yes, I want to find warmer water sometimes, and I go, gosh, all I got's 52. My parameter is 49 and 52. No, I don't like any of it, but I'm going to be in a 52. Does that make sense? So your practice is probably over. And I can tell you this, if you are in the 50, if you're below 55, keep moving. You have not found the right water. After tonight, there is 56 to 60 degree water. I found 61 today. You got to look for it. It will be in those south wind blowns, 1-1s and 2-1s. That's the zone. Okay? There's some areas, somebody may be back there and text me tomorrow and say, man, I found a bunch of them in 2-2. That means the middle lake, halfway back. If you find something like that, take a close look at what it is. It's probably due to the south wind blowing that nice warm water into that ditch or drain or cut. When the warm water goes in, the cold water goes out. Perfect example. I was catching fish right out in front of Lake Fork Resort. Wasn't crushing them, but I was catching them. When it was sheltered, no wind, sun-baked, it was warming up huge. 2 days ago, it was 58 degrees. Today, that wind blew all that surface water out of there. I didn't even think about it. I'm in there thinking, man, why aren't we getting a bite? I'm being complacent guide because I caught them here before. I'm in here fishing because I caught them here before. I finally looked down at the graph, and it was 52 degrees. Why? South wind blew all my warm water out, pulled all my cold water up. My bait was gone, my birds were gone, my fish were gone. Or were they? They weren't gone, they were cold. That's the difference. So find the warmest water you can. You should be at least, if you're fishing in less than 56, keep moving. No wonder you're going to probably 0. There is water out there. Let's talk about a couple other things. Any questions on this? You feel good? I feel like it helped anybody. I want you really to fish your own way. Fish your own baits. Don't go, Mike said use a cutter worm. I gotta use a cutter worm. I gotta use a cutter worm. Or Mike said use this. Fish your own style. Fish small stuff, fish slow. But 2 things I want to add to this. Anybody have any fishing questions? Because I'm kind of done with the seminar right there. I'm going to leave you at that. If you want more information, you went tighter, you can go to my YouTube page. I do offer a free public rundown. You can watch the last 2-3 weeks. It might help you tonight. You want to subscribe to my members only? There's a little more detail in there. I'm not leaving anything out tonight that ain't in my members only. I did a do's and don'ts today. It's pretty much testifies exactly what I just told you, catching fish on the V&M chopstick and the Okeechobee Magic. Okay? This is more important to me right now. This lake is freaking dangerous. It's the most dangerous that it's probably ever been. There are guides that have been here 38 years. Johnny Glass hit twice already. Myself hit once. Jason Hoffman twice. Andrew Grills, you name it. We know the lake like the back of our hand. There are stumps in places out there that you do not expect, even in the buoys. If you're running out of here, you can take off. You can run that trail. When you get to that main lake point, or that main first big red point down there, shut down. Don't try and run through there. You may see some guides running through there, and I'm telling you, we're running through tables. It's by the hair of our chin. So it's more concern to me that no one gets hurt, no one wrecks their boat. And something like this, it's here for fun. Please go easy. If you don't run your boat over 40 miles an hour, you're a lot safer than if you're running 70. 70 might put your engine right in your lap, where 40 would just kick it up and you can call your insurance. Okay? So please, take it easy. This is for fun. It's a Saturday. There's going to be a lot of people out there. Even going into the backwaters, idling, you're going to bump stuff. If you don't want to bump stuff, this is not a pitch. This is not a sail. This is probably the very best thing that's ever come to Lake Fork in a long time, and it only came because we're 6 feet low. And my good friend Curtis Daniels decided to do the homework. 6 weeks worth of idling, 6 weeks worth of drone work, 6 weeks worth of fuel, maybe more. And we now have the Lake Fork Super Trails. Lance Vick has done an incredible job, and over all the years, we absolutely needed what he did for this lake. And I will never ever speak bad about it. It's not my intention right now. That is based on 1,700 trail points. It's amazing, it's true, and you won't wreck using Lance Vick's boat lanes. Curtis Daniels just put down 8,000 trail points. 8,000. That's 4 times the amount. It's tournament edition. So instead of going in and having to come out the same trail, he went in, made trails, flew drones, and made exits. You can be thorough. You can move in and out, in and out. If you're a bank runner, you like cupping water, the Lake Fork Super Trails will blow your mind. Kevin Van Dam used it. Justin Lucas gave me a personal interview about it. There were probably 24 MLF anglers that literally said, boom, wow, amazing, truly amazing. It's $60. So all you need to do is go to Lake Fork Super Trails. You can do the download. Some of the marinas are carrying already. It's a little late tonight. Tomorrow be safe, but in the future, take a look at that. I'm telling you, it's the best thing for the safety and for the access, and to be able in the future, when the water comes back up, you will be able to attack Lake Fork like we never have before. How many people idle going into a cove under 3 miles an hour because you're worried about bumping? I do. I always do. Under 5 miles an hour, I'm not going to hurt my boat. Once the water comes back up, I'm going to be idling these super trails, if I ain't running them, at 15 miles an hour because there ain't nothing to hit. Okay? Not only did Curtis do all the homework and lay down the trails, when it was all said and done, he burned I don't know how many gallons of fuel to go back through each and every one of those with the motor trimmed in the hole, taking the risk of bumping them because he wanted to know how clean it really was. And that's the truth. With my friend Mark Peck listening, standing right next to my God, the Lord my God. Okay? I can't tell you no more honesty. I can't tell you more truth. I'm not trying to sell you nothing. Lake Fork Super Trails is the real deal. And it will save you and your boat out there. And in the future years, you're going to say that's the best thing you've ever seen. Okay? That's it. Any questions? Really? Was it that good? No questions? Or you're all going, you're joking? No questions? Claps? Thumbs up? Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks so much for having me. Truly, if you do have a question you just didn't want to answer or ask, take me aside. Come up here, look at these baits if you want to see it. And listen, one last thing, man. God bless you all. Safe fishing. Someone's going to catch a big one tomorrow. Do me a favor. If you do catch an over, put it up in the sky and tell Mark Beck thank you. We wouldn't all be here. This lake would not be Lake Fork if that man hadn't started it all. He's the first guide to ever guide here 40 years ago. Thanks, brother.
All right. Fantastic, Mike. Thank you so much. If anybody needs to rethink their position for tomorrow, most of you need to be fishing in the 3-3. 3-3 is where most of y'all need to be fishing. With square bills, rattle traps, and 50-degree water.
Where's 3-3? What's 3-3?
Bottom of the lake, mouth to the dam.
Yes, sir. And dam where? Come on. The dam mouth of King. The dam mouth of any one of the creeks. So you got it. Okay?
Yeah.
You weren't listening. Just like a young boy. Just like a young boy.
All right, Mike, we appreciate that very much. A lot of great information, probably more than any of us have ever had the opportunity to hear. So maybe a little overwhelming, and I think we'll all be looking at our temperatures tomorrow and looking for the 1-1s. So thank you again very much. Great job.
My pleasure.
Let's use this opportunity for a minute to kind of rehash rules and